Welcome back to the Jasa channel. I have a fun episode for you today. Glass Plinko. Plinko, but with glass rods. I'm going for over 100 of them. Now this is just the first batch of rods right here. I do have another video about cutting glass. It'd be good to check that and some of the other videos to start building up your knowledge for your lampworking adventure. Some people do learn a little bit differently. You may prefer a class with an in-person instructor, but then there's others that like to kind of teach themselves and be more of an observer. Kind of use videos and watch the instructor's hand movements. Watch the glass as the person is interacting with it. You can really pick up a lot of details by just watching someone work. But if you are planning to take a class, it is a great idea to prep yourself ahead of time with some online information, kind of like this. That way you can get the maximum potential that teacher has to offer you. But of course, the real secret to doing great work is practice. I may have made the mistake saying that lampworking was a little bit too easy in the past. Of course, that's not exactly true because it takes many hours of practice, a lot of dedication to get to the point where you're actually making things and getting a lot of satisfaction out of your work. But then getting that drive, that willpower to do it, that's up to you. You can make that as easy as you want. If you've got that fire in your soul, or you just drifting on by. Either way, make sure you have a good time. That's really what's important. There's no time like today, and there's no today like tomorrow. Which means it's also good to plan ahead for those tomorrows, especially with safety. My eye protection is not only for the hot glass, but for the ultraviolet radiation and the sodium flare. And the one thing you can't see in the video is the ventilation system. I'm lighting an incense stick here. You'll notice the smoke travels towards the top right, which indicates a current of airflow in that direction. It is a high oxygen flame, so it does burn pretty clean. However, when it comes to combustion, there's always some hazardous fumes you have to worry about. You never want to operate any flames in an enclosed space. Also, a good idea to prep your workstation to be as fireproof as possible. It's important to minimize or completely avoid those long-term hazards. And so to make the Plinko game, I'll push the glass rods into this pegboard, and I'm making sure to do a back and forth, kind of like a diamond pattern. That way it'll hit the next peg when it falls through the previous two. I'm planning to put some lights behind the pegboard also to shine through. So I'm thinking those rounded tips will help transmit more light than just having them cut flat. It's kind of a small detail, but sometimes those little details really shine through in the end. And here's the end of the Plinko board. I'm going to add one extra rod in the middle to capture the marble so it lands safely. Now I'm going to take my handheld circular saw here and start to cut away the sides. It always helps to have the right tools for the right job. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to save some time with a Dremel or some other improvised tool. Of course, the best tool you'll ever have to practice with in lampworking is your hands. It's good to build up the strength and coordination with your hands. It does take quite a bit of practice and time. I know a lot of people are moving over to lathes or machine-handled glassworking. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think especially later on after you've practiced quite a bit and you might have started to move to fabricating a lot of work to sell. Automating the process may help save some wear on your body. But before you get there, it's good to have a solid foundation in knowing what the glass likes to do when it's molten and knowing what you have to do to get it to where you want it to be. And then you can make the machine do it for you. And now these zip ties are just temporary. It's just so I can move things around for now. Once I have everything set up, I'll start to bolt everything in place. So I wanted to add some extra lights at the bottom of the table. That way you can have a point system for where your ball lands. The middle slot is normally worth the most points, and then the outside slots are the least. So I'll have 2 green LEDs in the middle slot, and they're going to need a resistor. A resistor helps restrict the flow of current so you don't end up overpowering the device and burning it out. I've made the mistake of wiring multiple LEDs to one resistor, so it kind of restricted the flow of amperage to the whole stack. So I believe with this kind of parallel wiring, you need a resistor per LED, so they all get the same flow. But then if you're doing a big series connection, I think you just use one larger resistor for the whole connection. But I may be mistaken, so feel free to comment down in the comments. And now my problem here is my red and orange LEDs run at a slightly lower voltage than the blue and green. And I don't have a smaller resistor for them, so I'm just gonna wire them up in a series and make it a 4-volt connection and use 4 volts of battery. I'll go and start popping these through the board and begin to wire them up. It is a good idea to solder your connections. That makes them much more permanent and solid. But I wanted to demonstrate also that soldering isn't necessarily a required step to powering a device. All you need is a physical contact. One surface of the material touching the other surface will send the power right through. Then depending on the material, it may try to restrict the flow of electricity by adding resistance. Copper wire, for example, has very low resistance, allowing you to send power to your device with ease. Whereas something like nichrome wire, which is an alloy of nickel and chrome, restricts the flow greatly, adding a lot of resistance, so it'll heat up as you begin to add more electricity to it. So it's often used as a heating element. So real quick, I need to make a battery case. So I'm going to heat up the end of this tube and start puffing into it to start to thin out that area. Then I'll turn up my flame a bit, put it into the fire as I puff into it to pop out a little hole. That's a good beginner method to pop open your holes to prevent any bubble trash. Another one would be to pick the hole open in the flame. I know I've picked open a few holes before in the episodes, so make sure to look back a little bit and pick up all the tips. But then a very rough flare here just to fit the batteries inside. I'm really not going for nice shaping. This thing is going to be hidden inside the machine, so it doesn't have to look like anything. A flare is kind of stressful to the glass, so I left it kind of thin here so it wasn't as shocking. And so I'll just bathe it here in a gentle flame to set it down slowly, because I don't have enough time to run the kiln. The family's coming over, my little nieces. They're going to be the first ones to test run the Plinko machine.
I'm going to play Plinko machine. Maybe I or my dad or my uncle, my sister on one, but we don't know. We don't know how this works, so how can we do this? Do I have to end up right here?
Oh, you pick one of these slots. Ultimately, you want to get into the middle green one, but the blue ones are okay. You don't want to get stuck in the outside. So you can choose whichever slot you want and let her roll.
Okay. So I'm going to choose this.
So you're outside of the blue. Good try.
Please turn this.
So let's give Via a turn.
Okay.
Do you have a marble?
Yep.
You can pick what. Yeah.
Your turn.
Okay. You want to give one try?
Everybody, pick your marbles.
Yeah, your turn.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, almost.
One more time.
We turned the fade lights on too, so they're changing colors now by themselves.
A lucky marble for me!
Your turn, B.
I want 2 rounds.
Oh, close. One more time. Oh, close. One more time. Okay.
Oh, okay.
My
This
old yucky one.
Oh, that's not even a marble, V. We'll see what happens. Let's go.
It won!
And that was a game of Plinko. Thanks for watching and subscribe. Please and thank you.